Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and of course, continuing on reviewing the Halloweenish films on the weekdays. And yes guys, that's right. As was clearly teased in the last review video, I'm sure you guys figured it out. Yep. Mel Brooks, because what an icon and legend he is in the movie industry, especially being one of the top best filmmakers to have brought us so many great, comedy/parody films, those kind of films through the 70s and the 80s and 90s, yeah. And, well, because when the 90s started to roll in, well, movies like those, that are parodies, spoofs and such, well, yeah, most of them not as really grand as, say, those from the 70s and 80s. And I have a good feeling that Mel Brooks probably had a good feeling about this. And after directing this, because, yeah, he stepped down directing and such, understandable. But, for me personally, I think, the last film he had directed in the 90s was not that bad. Sure, I mean, it might not be right up there next to, say, his other great films from, say, Young Frankenstein or Blazing Saddles, Spaceballs, but yeah. So that's right, guys. I am now reviewing, not to mention, this one Mel Brooks film is celebrating its anniversary. Yes, I am now finally reviewing 1995's Dracula, Dead and Loving It. However, I am not reviewing this alone, because I have a very special guest with me, whom he's into vampire stuff, and he technically is one, technically. And I'm sure you would probably know him, and yep, he's joining me for this. Joining me, review collabing, that is, Mel Brooks' Dracula, Dead and Loving It, is Count Charlie himself. Welcome, Count Charlie.
Oh, it is definitely one pleasure, Eli, my friend.
Yeah, he's especially, he's inspired by Count Von Count, if it's obvious, but okay. Anyways, so, Count Charlie, by all means, you go first. The floor is yours first. What are the first things you have to say about Mel Brooks's Dracula film, Dracula, Dead and Loving It?
No, Eli, that is definitely such a good question. I would say it's definitely such a very good, spooky Halloween movie.
Which also, not only that, but also being hilarious, a comedy, that is.
Yes, exactly. A true point.
Okay, and you got anything else to say?
I would say Leslie Nielsen nailed it as Dracula. It was definitely close as Bela Lugosi's.
Mm-hmm. And also, because I meant to ask you this, and now because we're doing our review, because what's your history and memories of Mel Brooks's filmmaking and with the movies he's done and any other films that you've seen of his?
Let's see. This is definitely such a toughie. Yes, I remember. I do remember seeing Dracula Dead, loving it, since when I was just a little nipper in the old country in Transylvania.
Okay. But any of the other films of Mel Brooks that you've seen besides this?
Oh, yes, that's right. Silly me. Now, let's see. I have seen Mel Brooks. Blazing Saddles. That's one movie that I've seen with Mel Brooks. Also, Young Frankenstein. That's two. Also, Spaceballs. Yes, that's three. Pardon me, I might get a little bit carried away. Now, let's see. Now, where was I? Oh, yes. Also featuring Dracula, Dead and Loving It, which we're talking about it right now. Now, of course, that makes four. That's how I love it.
Mm-hmm. Bear with him, folks, because him being in character, and I'm sure most of you, because you know who he is, of course, you follow him. We'll be hearing from you in the comments section. I know that, guaranteed. But anyways, okay. But Okay, so I might as well go next, because, yeah, the first things I have to say about Dracula Dead and Loving It, technically I already did, but, to talk more, because, yeah, well, for me, because, yeah, I myself, of course, have been a long-time fan slash admirer of Mel Brooks. I know my parents have as well, and, yeah, the many movies I've seen of Mel Brooks, obviously, and as you pointed out, Count, from Blazing Saddles, Spaceballs, Young Frankenstein, and also his Robin Hood film, that was pretty good too. And
oh yes, that's right.
And I think
you mentioned that.
Yes, and I think it's High Anxiety. That's basically a parody of everything Alfred Hitchcock. That was another good one too. But yeah, so and now that I have finally sat down / watched the entirety of Dracula Dead and Loving It. Yeah, because, like I said, I didn't think it was that bad. Sure, sadly, it wasn't the best, and certainly for this being Mel Brooks' last film he directed in the 90s, and especially since, it failed badly at the box office, and that was one of the reasons that Mel basically stepped away from being in the director's chair, and he would go on to do a lot of writing and producing from there on, and most prominently, adapting one of his earliest movies as a Broadway, The Producers, which he got the support and courage from his late wife, who does appear in this movie, but until we get to her. And as I mentioned, because throughout the 90s, comedy / parody films like Dracula Dead and Loving It, they weren't really that amazing and hilarious, that same tone as those early ones, especially the ones that Mel did. And I like to think that probably he had a good feeling, and hence, one of the other reasons he stepped away from the director's chair. But overall, yeah, I don't think Dracula Dead and Loving It as bad as it seems. Definitely, Dracula Dead and Loving It has plenty of hilarious stuff, great cast of talents. They are so great at which characters they portray, and seeing as how, because, yeah, they're all comedic, funny talents, and of course, if anything, they are perfect to play those characters in something that's a comedy. So, yeah. Yeah, a lot of funny moments here and there, and this especially takes, it's heavily based off of, the 1931 Dracula film, like the storyline that's in the 1931 Dracula film, and with humor in it. That's the big difference. And the jokes here and there, great chemistry, moments you don't expect, but you just laugh your butt off of. Yeah. I'd say Mel Brooks, he didn't do a bad job, and he did his best. There's no doubt that he did his best, and it's not his fault, of course, that the movie didn't really turn out that successful. I mean, that's their business. For ours, if we enjoy it, from, say, me and Count Charlie, and I'm sure the same goes for some of you, if we enjoy it, then that's good. That's our opinion. We are entitled to our opinions, how we feel about certain comedy movies like Dracula Dead and Loving It, in this case, yeah. But just overall, 1995's Dracula Dead and Loving It, it's not bad as it seems. It's quite good, entertaining, and especially, of course, it's perfect for any of you hardcore fans / admirers of Mel Brooks. And also, yeah, because definitely Dracula Dead and Loving It, because it could not top off, say, another comedy / parody Halloweenish film he did, say, Young Frankenstein. Yeah. Anyways. Alright, so, now, with the first things both me and Count Charlie have had to say about Dracula Dead and Loving It, now, as always, for me, read the description / the story. Dapper Count Dracula relegates from his Transylvanian castle to Victorian London with his salvish assistant, Renfield, in search of new blood. He finds it in a pair of beautiful young women, Mina and her best friend, Lucy. When Mina's Stracilated, fiance, I might have mispronounced that word, Jonathan, notices his future bride's odd behavior. He calls in his mentor, vampire hunter Van Helsing, to save the day. Okay, now with the first thing... so now with reading the description / the story out of the way, I actually do have some background here, as I sometimes do in these reviews, and I don't know if you probably don't know about the background and history / the making of this film, Count Charlie, but you're about to, so yeah. So the background on this, because Mel Brooks, he began development on Dracula, Dead and Loving It, not long after, say, the release of Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula film in 1992, Bram Stoker's Dracula, as it was titled, and because it was a major driver. Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula film it was a major driver for the production. Brooks, he was reportedly blown away by what Coppola brought to that Dracula film, and saw opportunities for a parody in its dramatic flourishes and visuals. Yeah. And just like what he did for, Young Frankenstein. And this basically is like it says right here, it's a companion piece to Young Frankenstein. And, because it says here that Brooks intended for his Dracula film to be a companion to Young Frankenstein, though it was ultimately considered a lesser film in his body of work, unlike Frankenstein, because it was shot in black and white, and that's the thing, because Brooks and his team were trying to figure out, should this Dracula film be shot in either black and white or color, but they opted for color to pay tribute to the Hammer horror films. Of course, as we all know, the Dracula films were the late great legendary Sir Christopher Lee. He portrayed Dracula. And that's another thing, because another thing to put at it is that many of the later Dracula films would be done in color. So, that did make sense for Brooks's Dracula film to be shot in color. And, and for casting, because after Brooks had seen Leslie Nielsen in the third and at the time final installment of Naked Gun, Mel felt that he was the perfect choice, a graceful yet bumbling to play a graceful yet bumbling Count Dracula, obviously. And fun fact, I don't know if you knew. I don't know if you knew this, Count Charlie, but do you happen to know who was at one point considered to play Dracula before Nielsen stepped in the picture?
No, but I always thought it would be Mel Brooks.
Okay, well, who was originally considered, and I have no doubt he would have been a good choice, but man, his performance would have been a lot different than what Nielsen brought. That being Fraser Crane himself, Kelsey Grammer.
I did not know that.
Yep. I take it you have seen Frasier before, have you?
No, but I would like to count all of the episodes.
Good luck to that. But, well, obviously you've seen Kelsey Grammer in a bunch of other stuff, like, duh, he was the voice of Stinky Pete in Toy Story 2.
Ah, yes, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yes, and how can we not forget that he's also been the voice of Sideshow Bob in The Simpsons, and he brought Beast to life on the big screen in the first X-Men films. Yep, that's him. But anyways, so again, point being is that Kelsey Grammer was originally considered, but then Leslie Nielsen stepped in the picture, and rightfully so. No hard feelings on Grammer, because again, I'm sure Grammer would have been a good Dracula, but again, his performance as Dracula would have been way different than what Nielsen brought. Obviously, Grammer, he's great at comedy, but his style of comedy and what he would have brought to Dracula would have been different. But anyways, not in a bad way, but alright. And as for Renfield, because Peter McNichol as Renfield. McNichol's performance as the incest-eating asylum inmate Renfield is often cited. It says that it's often cited point of the film, and his character is modeled after Dwight Fry's iconic performance. Okay, yeah, I should have figured. Yeah, I had a good feeling, and I did, without me realizing that I was getting the vibe and feels exactly like what Dwight Fry brought to Renfield in the 1931 film. But yeah. And who better to cast Renfield than, say, Peter MacNicol in a Dracula comedy film? And especially to have him co-star alongside with Leslie Nielsen. It's brilliant. And Brooks is Van Helsing because, yeah, I mean, it's obvious when it comes to any film besides Young Frankenstein. Any other film of Brooks is that, of course, he would get to be one of the top main stars. And, yeah, whom better to play Van Helsing than, well, you know, Mel himself. Yeah. And, yeah, that's pretty much, yeah, that's all the background I've got, but, okay. Now with talking about some background out of the way, let us now dive into / break down the film itself, shall we? Here we go. So, yeah. So the film does, like, yeah, obviously just like, and again, because this is exactly, like, going for that same, like, storyline as the 1931 film, like, I think we know by this point, but yeah. So, yeah. As we know, Renfield, whom has made his way to Transylvania, a real estate, and is going to have and help Dracula sign the papers to acquire the Carfax Abbey Castle in London, England. And, well, Renfield, of course, as was already mentioned, played by the great, talented, funny guy, Peter MacNicol. And I will say, because I've known Peter MacNicol in a bunch of other stuff, of course. Like, I've seen him in the first Mr. Bean film. I've seen, you know, we've also seen him in The Addams Family Values, and amongst other great stuff he's been in, you know, with his comedic style, just everything. Yeah. And, by the way, because, the peasants on the coach, well, yeah, the female peasant being played by Sherry Franklin, and the male peasant on the coach, we get a quick cameo of another funny man, the late, great Avery Schreiber, whom, yeah, he had worked with Mel Brooks a couple of times, especially, he is one of those cast members whom was a part of another Mel Brooks film 2 years before this, the Robin Hood film. Yep, so he appeared in Mel Brooks' Robin Hood film. So, because they're making their way, and the peasants on the coach, realizing that the sun is going down, they tell the driver to speed it up, and, like, the coach just getting out of control, just moving so much, just... And then, of course, making their way to where there's other peasants, and with the mentioning of Count Dracula, they know who Count Dracula is. They warn Renfield not to go there, and there's one other peasant that, you know, tries to encourage Renfield not to go there, and also, in the case of giving Renfield a cross, this gypsy woman, whom is played by Mel Brooks' late wife, Anne Bancroft. Yeah. And it's so funny because, you know, just trying to make it be scary and such, you know, because, like, jittering her throat, it's funny. And, you know, damn it, take the cross, you know. And which he does so. And so that was a nice, funny cameo from Mel's late wife, and thus, when Renfield would make his way to the castle, he has to go by foot. Yeah, and that's when, yep, we of course get the introduction of Count Dracula himself, Leslie Nielsen. And already, it doesn't take too long for the humor to happen with Leslie Nielsen's performance as Dracula. And especially, there are a few times where his shadow would have a personality of its own and doing funny stuff. Yeah, can't forget to mention that. And again, because this is supposed to be the same storyline as the 1931 film, of course, some of the dialogue being taken from the 1931 film, like most prominently, Children of the Night, but in here, it's Children of the Night, what a mess they make. Yeah. But, okay, Count Charlie, we'll come to you now, because with what I've talked about so far, what do you have to say?
Well, Now let's see. I would say that is definitely close enough to the original, except when they switched it up about a little bit.
Uh-huh. And any first things you have to say, because we've gotten Peter McNichol as Renfield, and now we come to Leslie Nielsen's Dracula. Anything to say on the two of them?
Let's see. I would say Peter McNichol.
I think it's Peter McNichol. I think that's the correct pronunciation of his last name.
Oh, thank you.
I think so. Yeah.
Where was that? Oh, yes. I would say his portrayal of Renfield is definitely close enough to Dwight Fry a little bit, especially when he gets to the left there, which we'll get to a little bit later.
Yes. And anything on so far? Any first things to say on Nielsen's performance as Dracula? And now that we've gotten the introduction of him.
Oh well, I would say Leslie Nielsen's Dracula definitely makes a hilarious Dracula.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, because you had seen the Naked Gun films, like, maybe prior to the Dracula film, or whenever you've seen them?
Oh, yes, I've seen all three of them recently.
Good. Great. And I take it because you had enjoyed the Naked Gun films and laughed your butt off of them.
Yes.
How can you not? Especially Leslie, because Leslie Nielsen, he always, when he went straight to comedy, he was one of those actors who had done comedy and he played it serious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very serious.
Playing the straight guy, but yet he's still hilarious. And technically he is. How can you not tell? He is when he's performing with his performance of Count Dracula. So, yeah. And any funny jokes and with what happens at the start of this movie you want to highlight before I continue?
Well, I definitely do know one thing for the first introduction. I definitely do know that guano can be slippery, just like a banana peel.
Mm-hmm.
Just can't believe that he just slipped on guano. He didn't felt any pain, but boy, his shadow felt tons of pain.
Yes, yeah, that, because him accidentally slipping on the bat who took a crap. So that was great. Anyways, all right, but continuing on, because so having signed the papers, and of course, well, Renfield having accidentally gotten a paperclip, but unlike the 1931 film, it's more than just a paper cut. Blood is spewing out, and Dracula can't help his thirst for the blood. Just can't help it. And of course, this gets the attention of Renfield, and but in the end, it stops. Not once did Renfield accidentally slip out the cross, just like in the original film, because that was pretty interesting. But oh well. Then Renfield, he sleeps for the night, spends the night in the castle before they would disembark. Well, two of Dracula's, vampire ladies, the brunette vampire being played by Darla Hun, and blonde vampire being played by Karen Rowe. That's a good way to describe them, honestly. One of those. And, not to mention that their IMDb profiles are, still shots of their appearances in the movie. That's nice to see. It even helps more. So a moment between those two vampire ladies of Dracula's, them coming in and just being very sexy, and even Renfield is commenting, you're messing up the furniture, however he says it. And they climb on top of him like, this is wrong, and Dracula speaking in different language and just telling them to scram, and just making it dramatic, and we hear, woman chorus, and Dracula telling them to knock it off, and they just walk normally, but in heavy shoes and such. They didn't have shoes, they were barefoot, but who cares, it's comedy. So, and Dracula, well, it doesn't take too long for Dracula to make Renfield his slave. And from there on, Renfield would be what he is. And the more we would get of Peter McNichol throughout this film, now that Renfield is under the spell of Dracula, of course, it's fantastic. And it doesn't take too long because, for them to be on the boat, on their way to London, England, the new castle that Dracula will live in. And of course, everybody in London, England is doomed with the presence of Dracula. Yeah, because what happens on the boat, because, Dracula's coffin just going back, because it gets unattached to some rope, and it's just going back and forth as the boat rocks, Renfield coming to Dracula's aid, and difficult for him at first to try to stop and hold the coffin in place, but yeah. And then, of course, it would lead to where, Dracula would kill the victims on the boat and the captain, and this would be pinned on Renfield, and he would be taken to the asylum that's run by Dr. Seward. Yeah, wait until we get to Dr. Seward in just a moment. But yeah, I might as well come to him now, because then, coming to the theater, and we see our other main cast of characters, Dr. Seward, being played by one of Mel Brooks's top Lucky Charms at the time, Harvey Korman, the late, legendary, other hilarious man himself, Harvey Korman, playing Dr. Seward. And we also have Dr. Seward's daughter, Mina, being played by Amy Yasbeck. And she, too, also having worked with Mel Brooks in the previous film of his Robin Hood film. And Mina's friend, Lucy, being played by Lisette Anthony. I hope I got her first name right, but you know me sometimes still. And Mina's fiancé, Harker, being played by the good, talented Steven Weber. Yeah, and this is young Steven Weber. Okay, we'll come back to you, Count Charlie, because where we're up to now, with what I've talked about so far, because what else goes on in the castle, then on the boat, and then when we get to the introductions of our other main cast of characters, Dr. Seward, Lucy, Mina, and Harker, what have you got to say this time?
Now let's see. Well, I just remember seeing Amy Yasbeck in that movie, and she did definitely close to the original Mina. What's her name? I forgot.
I know who you're talking about, yeah.
Yes, and Lisette Anthony, definitely close to the original Lucy. I forgot who played the original Lucy, but also close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I know who I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember their names. We've been there. We've all been there.
Yes.
So.
Yes, but when Lucy gets into vampire form, boy, I am in love. Boy.
Oh, are you?
Oh, yes, I am.
Okay. And and what about, say, the first things you've got to say about, say, Dr. Seward and Harker?
Wow, now let's see. Steven Weber's Jonathan Harker is also, I would say, definitely closer to the original.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Dr. Seward, but more funnier.
Yeah, more funnier. Because, this is a comedy / parody of Dracula, so it's obvious.
True.
Okay, and and any other, and with what I've talked about from what else happens in the castle and the boat and such, and with the jokes that happen, anything you've got to say?
Now, let's see. I would say when Lucy said that, "Oh, Count Dracula, I wish we could have that long talk about death right about now." That always made me fall on the floor. When Dracula looks at Lucy, whatever she's doing, getting ready for bed, getting ready to sleep, and when Dracula turns into a bat and splats right onto the window. Such comedy, man.
Absolutely. Okay, but
so hilarious.
All right, but anyway, so continuing on, because in fact, because when Dracula, he's made his way to England, and also because on account that Renfield's been thrown into the asylum run by Dr. Seward, because Dracula would then find his way to the theater, and he put this maid, under mind control, telling her to pass a message to the doctor, into the alley or something, and then he would tell her to forget everything that's happened. And, because it doesn't take her too long to forget all that just happened, and and it would lead to Dracula just meeting with the doctor himself. But then, of course, she would come in and, say that Dracula has a message and... But, yeah. But the introductions of them are quite funny, and even when, Dracula, he would start to take a likeness to, from Lucy then to Mina, especially since one of them reminds him of his lost love, his late lost love. And one of his first victims, besides Renfield, like the first victim in London, of course, would be Lucy. And, and to speed things up some, because, him going after Lucy, and with humor to it, of course, and that long talk that you just, because since you brought up Count Charlie, with that, and because Count Dracula is in a different part of the building or something, across from where Lucy's room is, and to see, of course, Dracula transform into bat form. And here's the thing, because I don't know, it didn't occur to me until now, because we know this, that in the case of Dracula, turning into a bat, but also can turn into a wolf. And it's not once in this movie does he ever, at some point, turn into a wolf. And not that I'm complaining, it's just, it turned out fine with that not being incorporated, but I'm just saying, hey, at least we got Dracula turning into a bat. And I've seen a little behind the scenes where Nielsen was wearing a motion capture suit or something, so they can of course they can digitally put his face on the bat and so on. But there were at least one or two close-up shots where Leslie Nielsen was actually wearing a bat costume, just with his head, his head just being normal, but in the case of him wearing bat ears and so on. But anyways, so Dracula turning into a bat and making his way to Lucy's room, but to have the window door be shut on his face, but of course he'd still make his way inside. And even when he was this close to trying to go after Lucy, well, that's interrupted when, say, Dr. Seward and Harker, they come in because they heard a noise, especially from downstairs. Dracula hit a couple of bushes. And, once everything's okay, and they leave, in fact, Dr. Seward was having trouble with the door, but, he closed it shut very tightly, just very quick. It caused Dracula, who was hiding on top of the ceiling, to collapse. But, Dracula, he proceeds with, biting on Lucy's neck, sucking the blood, and how could I have not known something like this was going to happen? We literally hear him sucking her blood, I should say, literally with a straw. We can hear the sounds of a straw. I think that's totally obvious that something like that would happen. But, and you found that funny too, I can see. But, anyways, so after that, because Lucy, who has just now been bitten by Dracula, by the next day / morning, Mina coming to help wake up Lucy and such, and Lucy feeling different and not feeling like herself, and she just can't get a foot out of bed and, can't stand the sunlight, something's up with her. And, here's the thing, because I just remembered something, because we know, of course, that in Dracula itself, because Lucy is the daughter of Van Helsing, but in this, she's not. Apparently, as I remember correctly, Van Helsing is Lucy's suitor. Yeah, that's true, but anyways. Okay, but let's come back to you for a moment, Count Charlie, with what I've talked about so far. Well, what have you got to say this time?
I would say, definitely so far a 10 out of 10.
Well, we're not going to be doing that until after the review, so...
Oh! That's right, I forgot. I just got a little bit carried away again.
Okay, but
Whoops.
With what I've talked about so far, of course, with Dracula turning into a bat, going for Lucy's neck, and so on, what have you got to say?
Well, I gotta say, his drinking out of the straw is definitely unexpected. I don't know where we see the straw, but
I guess he I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm guessing he just happened to have it like in his pocket or something. I mean, where else would it be, anyways? Yeah, but that was quite funny. And also any comment on, Dracula's bat form?
I would say that is definitely hilarious. We can still see his face a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can. So part of him as a bat is also like he's part bat, half Leslie Nielsen. Best way to put it.
Yes.
Yes. Anyways, but yeah. So okay. So back to where I was because there would be a moment actually, and even right before, say, Mina would discover what's going on with Lucy. There is a moment between Dr. Seward and Renfield because Renfield, who's been in the asylum, he's to meet with and have some breakfast or something with the doctor, and of course, as we know, when it comes to Renfield, he always goes for bugs. That's his feast and such. And and his attempt to try and hide the fact that he's eating bugs, Dr. Seward just instantly notices, and the attempts that Renfield tries to make to deny that he's eating bugs. And because he went for a bug that was on the table and one on the floor, then a spider, all of that. He went for a grasshopper, and I saw you go for that bug. No, I didn't. The chemistry and performance between H. Harvey Korman and Peter MacNicol just, of course, brilliant. And then after that, because then he's to be taken back to the asylum, and Martin, because Martin being played by Mark Blankfield. And to name some of the other cast members, because, Sykes being played by a late, great, talented British actor, Clive Revell, and the innkeeper being played by Chuck McCann. And I'll mention some of the others later on, because, Anyways, so, and by the way, because at times there's the mention of this medicine for Renfield to specifically take, the enema, whatever that does to Renfield, but probably not good for him. And back to what I was saying, because Mina would then discover what's going on with Lucy, and this would then lead to Dr. Seward and the others to reach out to Professor Van Helsing. But also, and during that, because, there is one moment we get, and I had a feeling at first, and wait, is this what I think it is? And turns out that I was right, because at one point Dracula wakes up, and it's daytime, and, because, apparently he's not getting burned by the sunlight, and he goes for a stroll outside in the literal broad of daylight, and going for a piece of chicken, and drinking wine, and, to him, he thinks that the wine and the chicken both taste good, and Renfield's stepping out and warning Dracula, his master, that he shouldn't be out in the middle of daylight, and that's when we see him start to burn, and turned out it was a dream. Mm-hmm. And the way, do you remember, how Dracula put at it by how he called the dream? He had a what now?
Oh, I think he said it was called a dayman.
Yeah, daymed. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, because, I almost forgot about it. Thank you for that. Lifesaver. I mean, that's what's great. That's what's great sometimes, having others, join in, for review collabs. But anyways, so with that, and that was funny how Count Dracula put at it. And okay, let's go ahead and get to the introduction of. Actually, before I do, because with what I talked about so far, the conversation talk between Renfield and the Doctor, and with Dracula's dream. Anything you've got to say on that stuff, Count Charlie?
Now, let's see. The way you said, I never drink. Why? You said, oh, what the heck? Let me try it. Then he said, it was very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I guess we've never seen vampires drink wine until now.
Yeah, and like
Definitely hilarious.
I was about to say, because it just makes you wonder, like, what exactly does the wine do to vampires? And anything to say on that sequence? The conversation between the Doctor and Renfield, and when Renfield's trying to deny that he's eating bugs.
Well, now let's see. I was definitely the way that Dr. Seward said raspberries. Raspberries.
Yes.
We're not selling raspberries. That made me laugh. I'm not sure raspberries are pronounced like that. I don't know.
Well, raspberry, yeah, but then he said it's a raisin from the muffins. I mean, yeah, that might have worked, but nope, that did not fool the Doctor. Okay, but let's continue on, because let's now talk about the introduction finally of Professor Abraham Van Helsing, being played by Mel Brooks himself. Yep, and again, who better to play Van Helsing in this than, well, Mel himself. Because Professor Van Helsing is teaching a class, examining a body, and just, like, makes you wonder how old this deceased body is, and all these interns that participate, because one of them actually being Dom DeLuise's son, David DeLuise, whom we would know best being the dad in Wizards of Waverly Place, but amongst others he's done in his acting career, of course, and not to mention, I'm sure as you all know, Dom DeLuise was another big-time, lucky charm next to Harvey Korman, being in quite a lot of Mel Brooks's films, So that's nice to see that, and even though, unfortunately, Dom DeLuise is not a part of Dracula Dead and Loving It, hey, at least we got one of his children making an appearance in this. That's nice. But, just that first scene we get of Van Helsing, and constantly the interns, they keep passing out over, like, Van Helsing demonstrating on the deceased body, doing some things to it and taking out, some stuff, including the heart, and then it would come to the brain. Just that was great. What are coming back to you, Count Charlie? Because what are the first things you have to say with our introduction to Van Helsing himself, and being played by Mel Brooks?
Now, let's see. I would say his German accent as Van Helsing is definitely unexpected. I don't think we heard that Van Helsing does a German accent before. Because most of the portrayals of Van Helsing is, well, British. But in the case of Van Helsing in this Dracula film, and since this is a comedy, I think it's acceptable, and it works, and especially since it's Mel Brooks doing it, so... Yes. But anything else you've got to say about Van Helsing, and again, with his introduction, teaching a class, examining on a deceased body? Yes, it was definitely unexpected, and, it's a good thing we didn't see the deceased body. I don't know who passed away in that, I don't know who did the deceased body, but, thank goodness it was only props. Yeah. Woo! As if we're supposed to know who died, who that body is, but yeah. And you did recognize, right, that one of the interns was David DeLuise? Yes, I didn't even recognize him at all. Oh, you didn't? Especially okay. Without the mustache and everything. Well, again, it's Dom DeLuise's son, David DeLuise, so... Yeah. Boy, was he young that day. He was, yeah. And I have no doubt, of course, you've seen Wizards of Waverly Place, so, of course, you've known him from that. We all have, but, yeah. Yes. But, of course, that being one of his earliest acting parts, and, again, it's just, as I said, it's great to see that one of Dom's children got to be in one of Mel's films. So, yeah, like father and son, I guess you could say, being in Mel Brooks content. Anyways, so Van Helsing, after class is over and all of the students, they've passed out, that's when Van Helsing gets
gets a telegram, a message to come to London, England, and, yeah, be a part of what's going on right now in England, and in the case of Lucy. And, well, to go ahead and mention this and to still speed things up some, because, yeah, Van Helsing, of course, discovering that, yeah, by looking at the bite marks, 2 bite marks that are on Lucy, well, it occurs to Van Helsing that, well, this is the work of a vampire, and just more funny performance we get from Mel, and with that you said German accent, right?
Oh yes, definitely.
Right. Just making sure. Yeah, with Van Helsing's German accent, Mel's performance, even there are a few times where Harker and the Doctor, they can't make out with what Van Helsing is saying specifically, just a few times. And the Doctor and Harker, especially the Doctor, they find it hard to believe. They're not really sure, especially the Doctor, that this could be the work of, say, a vampire and so on. And, yeah. But to still speed things up some, because, yeah, the more we get of, say, Lucy and her transformation as a vampire, well, because, yeah, because, she doesn't die, she becomes undead. And, yeah, just, in fact, because, when it's believed that, she did die, she sadly didn't make it. In fact, because, yeah, there's one moment where we see Dracula, having summon and rising Lucy because, well, I mean, yeah, here's the thing. There was a moment before she supposedly died where they placed a lot of garlic around her bedroom, and, as recommended by the Professor Van Helsing himself to do so, and placing the garlic, and then, well, that's going to keep Dracula away from trying to go to Lucy. And yeah, when noticing the garlic, just woo, just he wants nothing to do with the garlic, of course. Too much garlic around, man, because they put so much garlic on strings all throughout Lucy's bedroom. And even Lucy has to cover herself in the bed sheets because of the horrific smell of garlic. Now, when it comes to the smell of garlic, we like certain smells of garlic and other brands of food that have garlic, but in the case of garlic itself, I guess it depends. But, you know what? I'm genuinely curious to ask you, Count Charlie, how are you on garlic? I'm sure out of character you like anything garlic, but we'll just leave it at that. But anyways, so...
I definitely do not like garlic. Garlic is...
for real? Because even out of character for you?
Yes, for real. I definitely don't like garlic.
Not even, say, things that have garlic in it? Like say, garlic bread?
I never liked garlic bread.
Okay. All right. If it's so, then okay. It's okay. We're all entitled to how our tastes of food, and in the case of garlic. But anyways, back on point, because, yeah, Dracula summoning and, having Renfield escape from, the asylum to go take down the garlic, and thus Dracula can proceed inside. However, it's bound to happen, right? Because Renfield does something screwy. Yeah, he screws up, of course. He's going to screw up something, which he does, because he hears some noise coming from Lucy, and what's going on? Because she's, moaning and such, and when he looks under the bed sheets, yeah, and then Lucy screaming when she sees the sight of Renfield. Renfield screams as well. Dracula commenting that, Renfield just a complete idiot because, yeah, he screwed up what he was supposed to do. And it doesn't take too long for Dr. Seward and Harker to, take in Renfield back to the asylum and give him that enenum and just, yeah. And, well, still, as proceeded by plan, leave the garlic up, but Dracula would then, summon Lucy out of bed. And then what would happen next? Yeah, Mina would discover and see the horrific sight of someone in a cape bite and supposedly kill Lucy. And because she screamed out, they went and they went to the site of Lucy's body. Yeah, because they presumed that she died. Yeah, and by the way, because with the interactions between them and Dracula, because even Mina, didn't take too long for Mina, after having first meeting Dracula, finding something very suspicious about his character and such. But yeah. Also, I can't forget to mention this because, yeah, a funny gag to come from the character of Dracula, because he's, at times, wearing an extra piece of hair. It's like a hat and such to him, which, of course, is pretty funny. Do you have any comment on that, Count Charlie? Because he's wearing a hat of hair, basically.
Oh, yes, that's right. I completely forgot to mention that.
Me too.
It was definitely hilarious.
It was. And, okay, and with what I've talked about so far, the whole thing of the garlic and Renfield screwing up what his master ordered him to do, and if there's anything, and with what I've mentioned about Lucy, yeah, because what say you this time?
Now, let's see. It was definitely unexpected.
Yeah, it was. I think now that we're older, we get exactly what she was doing under those covers. But,
I think so.
Yeah, but anything else you've got to say with the whole garlic thing and Renfield screwing up?
Let's see. The garlic? There is such a thing as a tad too much garlic, but, I definitely relate to him. Too much garlic.
Because you're a vampire. That's why.
True. True.
Yep. Okay, but anyways. Alright, so continuing on, because, yeah. And still to speed things up some, because, yeah. Well, there would be another sequence that would happen with Dracula, but this time, the first interactions, I should say, between Dracula and Van Helsing, and with Dr. Seward and Harker being there. And, of course, it's humorous, the interactions between Van Helsing and Dracula. Not to mention because, yeah, again, a certain language that Dracula can speak, and you know what that is, right, Count Charlie?
Yes, that is the ancient Moldavian.
Moldavian? Is that how it's pronounced?
I believe so.
Medavian. I think there's an I, like Medavian, I think. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So, but you viewers know, of course, as well. But yeah, so, yeah, between them, like, speaking in that language and whom gets the last word. Now, that was pretty funny. But, yeah, and coming back to you, Count Charlie, because anything you've got to say on that sequence and them speaking in that language and, you know, whomever gets the last word in that language?
No, I would like to say I have these 3 words. Polostoy. Make that 4. Which, of course, is Polostoy, like I said, Abeluta. Then he said, Fushta. Then, of course, he said, Kavelia.
Yep. Yeah, and just like, yeah, again, just that sequence itself, and just, yeah, overall, because the chemistry between Leslie Nielsen and Mel Brooks, it's just, yeah, of course, it's brilliant, so. And, well, in Van Helsing, he would then start to speculate that Dracula is the vampire, which, of course, he would turn out to be right, and we, the audience, we already knew that. And asking the doctor if he has any books that have to do with vampires and so on. And, you know, he says that he doesn't, but he asks if he has something Nosferatu, and he says, yes, it just came in today. You know, talk about perfect nick of time. So, by analyzing and looking / reading through the book of Nosferatu, some details and information that Van Helsing gets, well, then at one point, and still to speed things up some, because, yeah, with what would happen next to Lucy, well, because by this point she's had her funeral, her body's been taken to a can't get out of my mouth, mausoleum, yeah, and well, the innkeeper, yeah, because the innkeeper, you know, because saying his, you know, goodbyes to Lucy, but we hear the voice of Lucy, you know, calling out, and the innkeeper just, opening the lid of the coffin, of Lucy's coffin, and yep, well, of course, Lucy becoming a vampire and killing the victim, the innkeeper, killing her first victim. Then it would lead to Harker, because he's keeping a watch and on guard with, what's going on in the night, and just to also just keep an eye on Lucy's gravesite. And, as the doctor says, do what you must, but, he feels still that it's a waste of time, but little does the doctor realize what's actually going on, that it's for real. And then with Harker approaching the gravesite of Lucy, and when he would come face to face with Lucy trying to make a move on Harker, but Harker, only liking her as a friend because, he's engaged to Mina, of course, and so on, but Lucy's not going to take no for an answer, and her just kind of like exposing like her part of her cleavage and just putting her hands all over Harker, but that would be interrupted. What's that now?
Oh, nothing.
Oh, okay, I thought you said something, but, all right.
No.
But if you have anything to say with what I've talked about so far, like anything you've got to say? Like obviously most prominently with Lucy's resurrection now as a vampire.
Anyway, like I said, on Lucy as a vampire, boy, I am in love.
And I take it, like, you have a big crush on the character of Lucy.
Yes, I do. Wow, boy, is she beautiful.
You're telling me that you prefer Lucy than what? Like, say, Vampira or Elvira?
Something like that, pretty much. Something like that.
Because it's true what I say, because, like, from Vampira to Elvira, they're two of the hottest vampire babes, so... But if you prefer Lucy, then that's your opinion, so anyways... So yeah, as I was saying, like, yeah, back on point, because all of that would be interrupted between Lucy trying to seduce Harker, when, of course, Van Helsing steps in with a cross, which she would go back to her coffin, and when they make their way inside the mausoleum, that's the correct way to say it. Well, yep, they would find Lucy asleep in the coffin, and it would lead to where, yeah, they have to put a staff through the heart. Use a hammer and, with the staff and such, right through the heart. And Van Helsing has Harker do it. And I should let me just say I should have expected, of course. How can you not? Of course, that in the case of this, where Harker's about to stab the staff through Lucy's heart, something is bound to happen hilarious. Like, yeah, it's not just a simple stab through the heart and all that, just maybe a little bit of blood spewing, but no, because when Harker does so, and Van Helsing, like, hides himself, once Harker, like, with just, like, one good hit of the hammer, a pool of blood spews out. Then when Harker goes again, more blood spews out. Well, the fact because, with Van Helsing's comment on why she has so many blood spewing out, just, she just ate and so on. Like, God. So overall, it's obvious that something hilarious was going to happen, and yeah. And in the case of a lot of blood spewing out. But in the end, Lucy is back to her normal self, and now she can finally rest in heavenly peace. Yeah. All right, but now coming back to you, Count Charlie, because I'm sure, you have a good comment to make on that whole thing where Harker is the one to stab the staff through Lucy's heart and the blood spewing out. Okay, just overall, what say you?
Now let's see. I would say the way Steven Weber said she's dead enough. I thought it was scripted, but nope, it was improv.
Oh, it was improv. I didn't know that, actually. Well, I mean, yeah. I think you know what? I think it would be obvious, even if you don't realize that, yeah, there obviously would be some stuff in any films like this that would be improv, so, but that was good on Steve Weber's part. Anyways, but anything else you've got to say on that sequence with the blood, with so much blood spewing out?
Yeah, the way that he reacted, it was absolutely hilarious.
Of
Oh
course.
my gosh, there's so much blood.
Ugh.
She just ate.
Yes, I was right. Yeah, she just ate. I almost forgot. And then all that Van Helsing can do is just give him a small handkerchief, to wipe off the blood. But that's not going to do it. But yeah. Then after that, well, now that Lucy's done for, now Dracula goes after Mina. And this was another funny moment here, because one of the maids serving, for Mina, Essie, yeah, I think I got her name right, being played by another cast member of Mel's previous film before this, the Robin Hood film, yeah. Megan Cavana, I think I got her last name right, whom we would know best as the voice of Jimmy Neutron's mother. That's her, yeah. So, yeah, we have her, and Dracula ordering her to sleep and have Mina wake up. And it then becomes difficult for Dracula because, Essie wakes up, but, he's trying to tell her to go back to sleep, but Mina does, and for them to go open the doors and so on. I literally said to myself, not that I was saying it negatively, but I was like, couldn't you just say their names? Mina, do this and you do that. But no, not once does he say each of their names. But when it's taken care of and has one of them turn off the lights, he'll come in there himself to fetch Mina. He accidentally fetches Essie, and, he takes her back, then fetches Mina. And he gave this very moving speech, and he had to say it again, just, kind of said it fast, just to get it over with. So now he takes Mina to the castle, and, what would happen at the castle? Because the dance of love, and, that, and, yeah, I have seen a clip of this most prominently on YouTube before I saw the movie itself, and the dance number between Mina and Dracula is pretty funny, especially when at one point Dracula's shadow starts to hump the shadow of Mina. The look on Leslie Nielsen's face as Dracula, just shocked by what his shadow's doing, just knock it off, and yeah. But coming back to you, Count Charlie, because with what I've talked about, Dracula having quite a difficult time trying to tell, ordering Mina as well as Essie, and then the whole dance sequence between him and Mina, because, yeah, what say you?
Now, let's see. I would say hypnotizing Mina and Essie is definitely very, very difficult. And then when Dracula got the maid and said, "You will be my bride throughout eternity. We'll share the endless passion of immortal love." And Essie was like, "Oh, I can't wait." And then I can't believe Dracula said, "Not you!" And then he just drops Essie and then comes back and pick up Mina and said, "You will be my bride throughout eternity. We'll share the endless passion of immortal love." The same thing. Which is definitely funny.
It is. And with the dance sequence, the first dance sequence we get of Mina and Dracula, yeah, what say you on that?
Yes. Well, that is absolutely very, very hilarious. 10 out of 10 with the dancing, though.
Yeah. Obviously, I was just gonna say, because it's obvious that there's a handful of shots where, yeah, there are dance doubles for Leslie Nielsen and Amy Yazbek, so... But yeah, some shots with them, they are dancing, but yeah. And any comment you got on with what Dracula's shadow does during the dance sequence?
That was also unexpected and funny. And Dracula said, "This time!" Which I believe it said stop in Romanian.
Yes. Yeah. Obviously. But yeah, that happened. And, well, of course, that's when Dracula would bite on the neck of Mina. It was pretty funny because she's like, "Don't give me a hickey," and of course he's not going to. So after that, yeah, well, Mina finds her. We see Mina back at the house, and Essie, she woke up, and last thing she remembered, she was knitting, and yeah, she just passed out, but she kind of got a cramp and such. Well, there's one moment where, yeah, Harker, just with Harker and Mina just having Harker, and because they're fiancés, they're not married yet, because Mina having, you know, Harker to touch her and so on, then her trying to touch him, it just gets out of hand, and even when Dr. Seward steps in and he's horrified by what he just saw and is upset towards Harker, Mina pretends that she didn't do any of this, it's all on Harker. But it doesn't take too long for when Van Helsing steps in, and when he would then realize, not, you know, very quickly, that, yeah, with Mina acting suspicious, and by noticing what's around her neck, a scarf, and her saying that it was cold last night, but when Van Helsing removes it, noticing the bite marks. Yeah, and that's when Van Helsing then, of course, knows it's the work of a vampire, and now speculating to believe that it is the work of Dracula. And, yeah, because what would happen next, and in order for them to finally take down Dracula, and because they failed to, well, technically, they failed to save Lucy, but yeah, she was already done for. Well, not in the case of Mina. There's still hope. There's still time/hope for Mina. What they have to do is to lure Dracula, and they can take him down, and before sunrise, well, yeah, and thus the nightmare will be over and Dracula will be defeated. And what they do is, you know, plan out a ball. They have a ball happening and everybody attending, and hopefully Dracula as well will be one of those guests. And Van Helsing, Harker, and Dr. Seward, like, because they're wondering if Dracula's even going to show up. But also in the case that Renfield has also been invited to attend to this wedding. Not wedding, ball, sorry, getting mixed up. We've all been there. Anyways, so yeah, Renfield, as I was saying, Renfield attending to this ball as well, because, well, by this point they now know that Renfield is linked with Dracula, being Dracula's slave, and so on. So they know that with Renfield's presence, then there's a good chance that, yeah, Dracula will be there as well, and so on. And maybe possibly, and what would happen next, of course, is that Renfield will lead them to where Dracula is. But overall, during the ball sequence, Dracula would finally show up wearing that hair hat piece, which he would take off, not his cape, and, yeah, that was funny. And to name some of the other, a couple of other cast members, because, yeah, because there was the coach driver at the start of the movie being played by Ezio Greggio, if I said that right, and there was also a nurse being played by Jennifer Crystal Foley, and the ship captain was played by Philip Connery, and the ballroom guests, yeah, well, actually, because another one, actually, there was a few crewmen of the ship that, yeah, one of the, a few of them I'll mention. The crewmen being played by Tony Griffin, Casey King, and Nick Rempel. The orchestra leader at the ball being played by Zell Kessler. And some of the ballroom guests, there was Barbara Earl Nielsen, Barbary Earl Nielsen, I presume, because, yeah, some of them probably, yeah, obviously they'd be in relation with Leslie Nielsen. Yeah, and Mara Nielsen Kaplan and Thea Nielsen Disney, Robin Shepard, Elaine Ballas, and Maud Winchester. Yeah, so those are the ballroom guests. But, yeah, but as I was saying, because Dracula does show up, and doesn't take him too long for, yeah, to have his eyes sight on Mina, and even, you know, with permission, asking permission from Harker to have a dance with his fiancée, and Van Helsing having him go along with this, and yeah. So another dance sequence we get between Dracula and Mina, and unbeknownst to Dracula, it's obviously it's from the works of Van Helsing, by placing a huge mirror, and to expose Dracula to the ball crowd, which, yeah, doesn't take them too long to discover that, yeah, Dracula cannot be seen. And, yeah, of course, this would have to be in the film where, yeah, Dracula and other vampires, you know, they are not too fond with mirrors, and you can't see the vampire's reflections in the mirror. You know what, and I'll throw this to you, Count Charlie. Like, I don't know, what say you? Like, do you see yourself in the mirror?
Sort of. Not exactly.
Okay. Well, okay, like, okay, here's the thing. Obviously, in the case, you see your own face and reflection while recording a video, so... I don't know, like, because that's probably different from, say, mirrors, but anyways, just thought I'd throw that out for something funny to ask you, but anyways. Thank you. And the name of that music that plays, because, you know, dun 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 dun, like, I've heard that music a lot of times. You know the name of that piece of music, don't you, Count Charlie?
Oh, yes, you mean, Stardust? I think I got that right.
Yes, I believe you did, yeah. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, that was great, because that was nice hearing that. And, well, it goes pretty well in the movie, and for that second dance sequence between Mina and Count Dracula. And unbeknownst to Dracula, because by this point, everybody, even we get a reaction from the orchestra leader / the conductor, that, yeah, they can see that there's no reflection of Dracula in the mirror. And Dracula thinks that everybody's getting a kick out of their dancing, and they just really take it a top notch with their dancing. Like, Dracula just, like, swinging Mina around the ballroom, and and on account of the music. But in the end, Dracula would finally notice that, yeah, a big mirror is present right in front of him. And Dracula, you know, throwing something to break the mirror and thus capturing and taking Mina in. But let's come back to you, Count Charlie, because with what all I've talked about, the ball sequence and so on, yeah, what say you?
Well, it looks like we finally hear Dracula say, "You're a wise man, Van Helsing. For once who has lived a single lifetime." It was definitely close enough to the original, but
yeah,
more furious, something like that.
Yeah. And anything to say on the second dance sequence between Mina and Count Charlie?
Now let's see. It was definitely also spot on. Same thing with the first one.
Yeah. This one, I guess, wouldn't you think that probably the second dance was better than the first one?
Something like that, pretty much.
Yeah, no hard feelings on the first dance we got, but yeah. And, but anyway, so, yeah. But overall, that was a funny sequence, and yeah, because with the reveal of Dracula to everyone in the ballroom and from there on. Then afterwards, well, the game is on, where they have to save Mina and take down Dracula once and for all. Renfield, on the other hand, because he tried to catch up to Dracula, but he wasn't able to, Master! Mister! And he's thrown back into the asylum. However, it doesn't take too long for Renfield to be released, be free from being in the asylum, because, on account that, yeah, Van Helsing knows that with Renfield being released, and going back to the castle, the Carfax Abbey, Renfield will lead them to Dracula's presence. So, it doesn't take too long for Renfield to be released, and Renfield doesn't take too long to realize that they're probably on to something. And he tries to fool them that he's, with his doing footsteps and all that, and he thinks he's fooled them, but not really. No, he's still an idiot. So thus, he makes his way back to Carfax Abbey, and with Van Helsing, Harker, and the Doctor following Renfield, and yep, we're getting up to the climax, and just like how it is in the 1931 film, where, yeah, because all happening at the castle, and with Renfield showing up, and Renfield assuring his master that nobody has followed him, but when they hear the voices of the three of them, yeah. And Renfield asking his master to punish him. Dracula has no time for that, but then he obliges by choking him, and then Renfield's like, "Okay, that's enough, master," and by tossing him on the stairs. And he's not done from there on, because, he just sits there, but up until, say, when Van Helsing, Harker, and Dr. Seward, they come in, they step on poor Renfield as they make their way up the stairs. And then it would lead to them trying to break down the door, and Dracula about to finally make Mina his longtime queen for eternity, and be his next vampire wife. Then, because the climax and where Van Helsing and Harker, they try to take down Dracula, but fortunately they're no match for Dracula. But that is until when, like, say, Van Helsing, and when Dracula has Harker pinned down to the floor by his shoe and is about to bite on Mina, Van Helsing breaks down some wood, tears off wood, I should say, to reveal the beam of the sunlight. And yeah, it starts to work, but up until when Dracula turns into bat form and he tries to make a run for it, and he takes a moment of relief and such, but Renfield being Renfield, he happens to be on top of the roof, opening the roof and trying to help his master to escape, but more sunbeam light hits, and that's what finishes off Dracula. And in the bat voice of Dracula, "Renfield, you asshole!" Dracula's done for. He's burned to a crisp. All right, but coming back to you, Count Charlie, because with what all I've talked about so far, the climax, Dracula's defeat, Renfield, all that I've said, well, what say you?
Well, I would like to say my favorite part of that climax is when Van Helsing stomped on Renfield right in the Johnny. Ouch, boy, that hurts.
Oh, yeah.
Simply hilarious.
Yeah, of course. And, this movie finding a way to make that hilarious.
Yes.
And Dracula's defeat and demise, because, yeah, anything to say on that?
Well, about Dracula's defeat, it is definitely close enough to the original Dracula, except without the wooden stake.
Yeah.
So not the death that we're expecting, but oh well, there's definitely tons of ways of killing other vampires other than a stake.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because that's another thing, because, okay, I mentioned earlier that we never once see in Dracula Dead and Loving It, we see the title character himself turn into a wolf. But, yes, but in the case of the 1931 film, we never once, when you realize this, if it occurs to you the first time or maybe later, that not once do we ever see Dracula be almost burned or anything like that in the sunlight. Not once. Not even how he's killed, because what we get in the 1931 film is, yeah, as you just said, like a stake through the heart. Like, that's it, nothing else. But in the case of Dracula Dead and Loving It, no, because it's not a stake through the heart, it's him being burned to a crisp by the sunlight. So, very interesting details there. And if anybody had ever realized that, or until now that I've mentioned it. But yeah. But now that Dracula's, okay, but back to what I was saying, because yeah, we now come up to the epilogue / aftermath, because, yeah, Dracula has now been defeated. And, well, in the case of Renfield, he's no longer under, the servants of Dracula, under his spell and such. And he no longer has to call someone master. And, he's free to live his life. But apparently, I guess that doesn't help, because when the doctor asks Renfield to come along, he says, "Yes, master." So, okay. Now he's serving under Dr. Seward, I guess. Well, in a good way, I guess. But yeah. And all ends well for, Harker and Mina. Now they can live happily ever after and soon get married. And, well, Van Helsing, all he can do is, get the last word in that language. And, and also because Renfield, he scooped up what was left of Dracula, the ashes and such, and making a happy face and putting it in his coffin. And, well, after that, and Van Helsing, he supposedly gets the last word in that language, saying it to what's left of Dracula, closing the coffin, and that's it. Yeah, and the credits roll. But if you stayed after the credits finished, and when the Warner Brothers logo shows, and the version I watched, well, we technically Dracula does get the last word in that language, if anybody knew about that, and if you knew, Count Charlie, but... So it was Dracula whom, in the end of the movie, got the last word, so... Anyways. And coming back to you, Count Charlie, because, so, do you have anything to say on the ending, to the movie?
Well, let's see. Oh, yes, the ending is definitely close enough what I have in mind. But the ending, when Van Helsing said, "Fushta!" the second time, and after the credits roll, we're about, I believe, 1 minute and 48 seconds or something like that. Of course, at the end, you'll hear Dracula say, Kevin.
Yes, that. Okay, so you did stay for the credits and you knew about that. That's at the end of the movie.
Yep.
Good on you. Good. And you should keep that in mind too, guys. So if any of you have seen this, and if maybe some of you, maybe not all of you, you did stay after the credits finished and you heard Dracula's voice. Okay. But yeah, and that's it. Yeah, that's all she wrote. Because, yep, 1995's Dracula, Dead and Loving It. Again, it may not be one of Mel Brooks' top best films that he has directed, especially since this has been his last one he directed. One of his top best comedy/parody films. It definitely wouldn't be up there next to, say, Blazing Saddles or Young Frankenstein or Spaceballs. But in my opinion, and obviously the same goes for you, Count Charlie, and I'm sure for some of you, we enjoy this Dracula film for what it is, and for this being a comedy, a parody, and it mirrors what the 1931 film was like, but with humor, slapstick, all that, following the same kind of storyline, what the 1931 film was like. Great cast of talents that were in this film. Yeah, just, from Steven Weber to Leslie Nielsen, Harvey Korman, Mel Brooks, Amy Yazbek, Avery Schreiber, Clive Revel, and Megan Cavana, and Mark Blankfeld, and Peter McNichol. The list goes on, and Licety Anthony, and Mel's late wife, Anne Bancroft. Yeah, everybody that was a part of this, they did a fantastic job with the characters they portrayed in this funny Dracula film. Mel Brooks' direction, the music and score, the funny jokes, the slapstick here and there, and of course with the references to what the 1931 film was like, moments you don't see coming, but you just laugh your butt off of. Everything about 1995's Dracula, Dead and Loving It, in my opinion, is not that bad as it seems. Like it's pretty good, entertaining, and if you enjoy it, then good on you. It's your opinion alone. Okay, we'll come to you, Count Charlie, because what are your final thoughts and results on Dracula, Dead and Loving It?
Well, now let's see. Aha! Now here's my own score. I gave it to myself.
Don't do, not yet. We're not there yet. How many stars we give it, just not that yet, okay?
Oh.
They're just your final thoughts and final words you have to say, about Dracula, Dead and Loving It, because,
Oh, that's right. Silly me. Now let's see, where was I? Oh, yes, that's right. I would say Dracula, Dead and Loving It is definitely such a very funny horror comedy movie.
Mm-hmm. And would you... No, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I would say it's definitely one of the best of Mel Brooks' work of all time.
Okay, and I was literally about to ask... I take it you would view Dracula, Dead and Loving It being in your top favorite Mel Brooks films?
Yes, that is absolutely true, my friend.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. Good to hear. Yeah, and I'm sure the same would go for you guys. But I'll talk more about that. But right after we now. Okay, so with the first things we've had, the last things we've had to say about Dracula, Dead and Loving It. Now how we rate it, how many stars we give it. Well, since you technically already brought it, you still can. Just, how many stars do you give Dracula, Dead and Loving It?
Oh, no, Eli. I'm not going to give it stars.
Well, I mean, I give movies like a 10 out of 10, like 8 out of 10, that whole thing. Just, how you rate it. Yeah.
Well, I rate Dracula, Dead and Loving It 10. 10 out of 10. Bats.
Okay. And the same goes for me, because I really enjoyed this. I really did. Yeah. I, too, give this 10 out of 10 stars. So, that goes for both me and Count Charlie. We both give, gotta slow down, Dracula, Dead and Loving It 10 out of 10 stars. And what about you guys? What did you think of Dracula Dead and Loving It itself? And like I said, would you view this being in your top favorite films of Mel Brooks that he's directed? Maybe not all of you, but some of you. Did you get some good laughs from this Dracula film? What was your first impression of it? Your favorite cast of talents and whom betrayed whom in this Dracula film? You know, from Leslie Nielsen, Peter McNichol, Harvey Korman, Mel Brooks, Steve Weber. Need I go on? Just, yeah. Favorite moments, favorite gags, jokes, stuff you didn't expect. Just couldn't help but laugh at this movie. Yeah. And, just overall, what do you think of 1995's Dracula Dead and Loving It itself, with what all we've had to say, me and Count Charlie, our review, and yeah, what did you think of our review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, guys, with all that being said, we thank you very much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed our review of Mel Brooks' Dracula Dead and Loving It. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and we will see you guys in the next video / review. And Count Charlie, it was a great pleasure for you to be a part of this, doing a review collab on this, and yeah, look forward to having you again soon.
Oh yes, my pleasure.
Anytime, my friend, anytime. And any last words? Say goodbye.
Oh yes, if you see any bats flying around, tell them to drop into my castle so I will count them all.
Yep, he says that, and, well, for me, and actually, because, yeah, can't forget to mention that, yes, of course, continuing on with the Halloweenish reviews on the weekdays, stay tuned, because what I will be reviewing next, technically it is another vampire film, and it has to do with this guy. However, it's a biopic all about the making of the 1922 silent film of You-Know-Who, and Willem Dafoe and John Malkovich are amongst the cast members of this biopic. And I'm pretty sure you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. Just, yeah, again, stay tuned for that. Take care. And again, thank you very much for watching. Happy anniversary to Mel Brooks' Dracula Dead and Loving It. And peace out.